5% of the entire human population. 17 million lives erased. One man, one mission. A legend built on pyramids of skulls. This is the complete story of Tamerlane, the most feared conqueror the world has ever seen. The year was 1336. Central Asia was a fractured, violent land, the shattered remains of the great Mongol Empire. In a small village near the city of Kesh, a boy was born to a minor noble family of the Barlas tribe. They were Mongols by blood, Turks by language, and Muslims by faith. They named him Timur. It means iron, and he would spend his entire life proving that name right. As a young man, Timur was a bandit, a mercenary, a fighter on the steppes. He was testing every rival, pushing every limit. Then, in the rocky gorges of southern Afghanistan, two arrows found their mark. One shattered his right shoulder, the other crushed his right leg. He lay in the dust for months, fighting infection, fighting death. When he finally stood again, he would walk with a limp for the rest of his life. His enemies called him Timur Ilang, Timur the Lame, as an insult. He took that insult and wore it like armor. By 1370, Timur had outmaneuvered every rival, bought every loyalty, and destroyed every enemy. His homeland of Transoxiana was his. But there was one problem. Timur was not a descendant of Genghis Khan. In the Mongol world, only those of the sacred bloodline could be called Khan. To claim the title would invite holy war against him. So the Grand Master made his most brilliant political move. He found an obscure Mongol prince, a puppet, and placed him on the throne. Timur stood beside him at every ceremony, holding all the real power while bowing to the fiction of tradition. He called himself simply the Emir, the commander, a servant with the power of a god. Tamerlane built something the world had never seen before, an army that combined the deadly speed of the nomadic horse archer with the grinding precision of siege warfare. Before his army even marched, his spies were already there, disguised as wandering holy men and merchants, mapping every well, every wall, every weakness of the city he intended to destroy. And he offered every city a simple choice: submit and live as a taxpayer, resist and become a memory. The city of Zaranj in Afghanistan was the first to learn the true cost of defiance. They held out for months, confident in their walls. When they finally fell, Timur did not just execute the soldiers, he ordered the death of every living thing. Men, women, children, the elderly, even the animals. Then he demolished the buildings stone by stone. He burned the crops. He filled the wells with corpses. He salted the earth so nothing would grow for generations. This was not rage. This was a message, a billboard written in blood and ash for every other city on his path. It worked. The next 10 cities opened their gates before his scouts even arrived. Toktamish was once Tamerlane's own protege, a ruler Timur had personally funded and placed on the throne of the Golden Horde. But Toktamish grew arrogant. He forgot who had given him the strings. In 1387, he betrayed his master and invaded Timur's homeland while the emir was away. It was the greatest mistake of his life. Tamerlane marched 200,000 men into the trackless wilderness of the Russian steppe, a green ocean where armies went to die of hunger. For 5 months, he chased a ghost. Finally, he cornered his enemy and shattered the Golden Horde completely. He then burned their great cities to the ground and permanently rerouted the northern Silk Road through his own lands, cutting the throat of an entire empire and leaving it to bleed out into the snow. In 1398, Tamerlane turned south toward India. Between Samarkand and Delhi stood the Hindu Kush Mountains, called the Hindu Killer, a wall of rock and ice that no army had ever breached in winter. His engineers went first. They lowered horses on ropes over 1,000-foot cliffs. They built bridges over bottomless chasms. They carved a road through hell. As he approached Delhi, he held 100,000 prisoners. He had no food to feed them, no guards to watch them, and he feared they would revolt during the final battle. He ordered all 100,000 executed in a single day. Delhi fell. He left with thousands of enslaved artisans and mountains of diamonds and rubies. The city would not recover for a full century. By 1402, a new power had risen in the west. The Ottoman Sultan, Bayezid, known as the Thunderbolt, had just crushed the combined knights of Europe. He was arrogant, fiery, and he called Tamerlane a crippled old bandit. The collision happened at Ankara, but Tamerlane had arrived first. He had seized the only water source on the battlefield and diverted the river. As the Ottoman troops marched through blistering July heat, they found the wells dry and the streams turned to mud. Thirsty, exhausted, and betrayed by their own allies, whom Timur had secretly bribed, the Ottomans collapsed. The mighty Thunderbolt was captured, kept in an iron cage, used as a footstool by the man he had mocked. He died in captivity, broken by shame. And yet, this is also the same man who built one of the most beautiful cities in the history of the world, Samarkand. He drained the world of its treasures and its talent. Every master architect, every tilemaker from Isfahan, every stonemason from Delhi was brought to his capital and put to work under the shadow of his sword. The turquoise domes rose to the sky, libraries filled with stolen books, gardens of silk and gold stretched to the horizon. He was a monster who loved beauty, a mass murderer who patronized science, the greatest paradox in human history. In 1404, Tamerlane was 68 years old. His body was failing. His generals begged him to rest. He ignored them. He ordered a march toward China in the dead of winter with 200,000 men. The blizzards froze horses where they stood, but Tamerlane would not stop. February 17, 1405. In the frontier town of Otrar, the Iron Lane finally stopped. A common fever did what all the armies of the world could not. At 2 in the morning, the man who had redesigned the map of the world breathed his last. In June 1941, Soviet archaeologists arrived at his tomb, the Gur-e-Amir, in Samarkand. They ignored the warnings of the local elders. They ignored the inscription carved into the jade slab. "Whoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." On June 19th, they pried open the lid. Inside, they found the skeleton of a tall, broad-shouldered man with a withered right arm and a malformed right hip. The legends were true. 3 days later, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa. The most terrible invasion in history had begun. 17 million lives, 5% of the entire human population of his time. That is the true cost of Tamerlane's ambition. And yet, statues were built in his honor. His descendant Babur rode south and founded the Mughal Empire, leaving the Taj Mahal as a distant echo of the turquoise domes of Samarkand. We remember the beauty he built. We forget the 70,000 skulls beneath it. We celebrate the Grand Master of Chess. We forget the 17 million ghosts who were his pieces. Tamerlane's story is a dark mirror held up to humanity, a reminder that history does not always punish monsters. Sometimes it just builds them a more beautiful tomb. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. History belongs to everyone. This is ChronosX Documentary.